SexyHackers.com.
Once upon a time, there were a few young girls with a passion for literature, a love of the written word, an inspired infatuation of... Okay, fine. We were a bunch of super dorks with no friends. We spent all day hiding out in our rooms, reading books that were maybe a little inappropriate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Who Let Me Read This, the podcast where a group of gals relive the sometimes terrible books of our young adulthood from the 80s and 90s, and why on earth we were allowed to read them. I'd like to take this moment to send a big thanks to all the disinterested public librarians who were not paying attention to what I checked out.
Totally. I was on a list as a child for sure. Like somewhere there's something where they're like, watch out for this one. She's got some weird.
Or they're like, this kid can read really well. Just let them check out whatever they want. We just want to encourage them to read more.
I think our school library, our town library, was not much bigger than the studio we are sitting in right now, which is actually pretty big. Thanks, sexyhackers.com.
Thank you.
But there was not a lot of reading opportunity in Nakusa, Wisconsin, to pick those things up. Town of 2,000 people. Anyway, diving back in, super excited to touch on a couple more points of My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews. Mm-hmm. Such a great book. If you've been listening to our last couple of episodes, we reviewed the tangled web of a plot, we'll say, that was then gaslit and set on fire. Yeah, Wild Ride. Yeah. Delightful. And today we want to discuss how this book was introduced to our lives. Miss Madi Veeder introduced it to all of us,
yes.
Oddly enough.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thanks, Mandy.
But Mandy actually had a pretty interesting introduction to the book in your childhood.
Oh, yes. And it wasn't this book in particular. It was, I think it was not My Sweet Audrina. Flowers in the Attic was my gateway, V.C. Andrews' book. I think.
Content warning, incest.
I was about, I think, 7th grade. Yeah, it had to be 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade. And my mom was like, handed it to me, and she's like, you would love this. I read it, and your grandmother before me read these books, and we love these books, and I think it's appropriate for you to be reading these books.
Hey, Chris, are you okay?
All right. I was tempted to phone her for this, but she is not a phone talker, and she is like many things, but not that. Sure. It would have been Ox.
So Mom feels it appropriate to not just allow you, but to suggest.
Suggest. So I hunkered down, and she's like, and when you're done with that, here are all these, because they had a collection, and that collection became mine, and I started to accrue my own V.C. Andrews books. And then I hit a certain age where I'm like, I think I'm a little more high-minded than this. And also, these books have made me distrust every male relative that I have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Male, period.
Males, but mostly male relatives.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very hard on hits very hard on the male relatives.
Yeah.
And the piano teachers.
Oh, yes, piano teachers.
I haven't spoken to my father in 3 weeks. For no reason. Maybe it's just time to set these aside. And so I gave up my collection. Fast forward to a few years later, my grandmother died, and she didn't have like a lot of things, but she did write out a will to like parse off like little things to my mom and my cousins. And one of my cousins got her a van, and I received a big cardboard box filled with the complete V.C. Andrews. So it's like those horror stories where you try to burn.
You throw the doll away.
When you throw the doll away, when you try to burn
coming back.
the Ouija board, it just keeps coming back. And like in my heart of hearts, like as an adult, like I love the books she has written. the ones that she can like rightfully put her name on. They have a special place in my heart. I think the writing's beautiful. The ghostwriter, not so much. And like if you ever go to the official VCA fan page, he moderates, and it is a wild ride. Sorry, Andrew Niederman, you need to calm down with the criticisms that you get from your fans. They are not bullying you. They mean so well, and also get a new ghostwriter. Moving on. Yes, that is my introduction to VC Andrews and My Sweet Audrina.
Wow. So because of this podcast, the rest of us were introduced to this book in our adulthood, our somewhere in our 30s. We won't name numbers. Michelle.
I love being in my 30s.
She's given me that
34.
You've said too much, Laura.
You've already given away too much.
Everyone's in their 30s except Michelle.
Michelle is ageless and in the middle.
Wait, aren't you 29?
No.
right?
No, that's Michelle.
No.
Yeah. No, Michelle's actually 9, like Audrina.
My sweet Michelle.
You know, that's actually a really good segue into some of our conspiracy theories and headcanons that have come up about this book. We might want to save that one for another time, that Michelle is actually Audrina. No, maybe. We'll see. But this conversation came about during a writer's meeting amongst this very funny group of ladies for Vaginity Hour Happy Hour. Just small plug for our sketch show.
August 23rd.
Probably won't be ready by then. That's okay.
You missed it. Come see the next one next year.
But it came about during a very passionate sketch discussion that Sarah, actually, you sort of exploded about something, and you're like,
possible.
I have some headcanon, I have some theories. And I was like, well, you know what? I think we can probably dive into this a little bit more on our podcast. So
I actually just found out that I'm not the only one with this headcanon, and I'm very glad about it. So headcanon. I don't think that Sophia? What's her name? Why can't I remember her name ever? Sylvia. I don't think that Sylvia is actually like handicapped.
Nope.
I think that the reason she didn't come home for 2.5 years or 3 years or whatever is because Damien was like brainwashing and manipulating her into acting in a specific way that would make Audrina not leave. Mm-hmm. Like, I think she is one more tool of Damien's manipulation.
She does talk about how she looks normal, and then as soon as she looks at her,
Yeah, when Audrina was looking
back.
away, they say like she walks
Right.
straight, like her eyes uncrossed, like
Yeah, there was a super creepy description of like that Audrina turns and looks at her and her eyes unfocus and go glassy. I'm like, that sounds totally normal and healthy.
And how did she save her life if she's that special?
Well, because they have a psychic bond, Michelle. Don't you have psychic
Yes,
bonds?
the psychic bond. But it also explains the psychic bond because like she totally understands way more than what Audrina assumes she does. And so what Audrina is seeing is like, oh, we have this psychic bond is really her like.
But what would make her keep
Understanding
going
so much
along
more.
with it?
Fucking Damien, man.
Yeah, he gaslit that little kid right from the get-go. That's all she's ever known is that that is what she's supposed to do. And who knows, other conspiracy theory, the other weird stuff that Damien's doing to that kid while she's home. We see their interaction with Audrina and Sylvia. We don't really see a ton of the interaction between Damien and Sylvia.
Yeah.
Like he is a good enough brainwasher and manipulator to make her think that like her entire childhood never happened.
Yeah.
Like
He's had practice.
also like that's a whole like weird like magics thing because he just figured out how to brainwash his child. I just figured it out.
They also talk about how he literally had her subjected to electroconvulsive therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cool medical profession in this book. Great job. So that I'm sure helped, and especially with her like regaining her memories over time, eventually she would heal from that. You're Your brain is a wonderful thing, children.
Don't shock it.
No.
Nope, not at all.
But Mandy, did you say something about the sequel White Fern, about something else being revealed?
Oh.
Aside from all the problems that there are with the sequel.
So I haven't read White Fern.
Oh, okay.
I've read like a few. I've read a few like recaps. I listened to the podcast episode covering on the podcast Teen Creeps, which is really wonderful. But they change up, and they said it's as if he went into this reading the Cliff's Notes of My Sweet Audrina, because it reads like a book report. But they from what I understand, they kind of like change up Sylvia's disability to make it more like she has moderate functioning autism with some, and they throw in a little bit of gross savantism with her like artistic ability.
Yeah, that's fun.
Why not? The one gross thing that we didn't have in this book.
Yeah.
Gotta fit that in the next one.
Is that what you were asking about?
Yeah, like the way that her disability was presented is
it's
just kind of
different.
completely changed.
Yeah, it's a little different in the new one.
Yeah, well, that's what happens in sequels. You get to just completely change your mind on what was established in the first book. And I think we have probably a ton of examples of that. But Sarah, I completely agree with you on that conspiracy theory because otherwise, why did he keep her in that hospital for the first 3 years? What was he doing?
Yeah,
What was
like
his
the
excuse?
other excuse that like would make sense to me is that he was waiting until Audrina was like old enough to really just be completely
Like,
her
take care of
caretaker,
her,
so
yeah.
he wouldn't have to do anything.
Or that Sylvia was old enough to be taken care of, not by a nurse or
Yeah.
something, you know.
Yeah.
Because when the baby was younger, it would need a lot
it'd
of
be
care.
really care intensive.
What is this guy's health insurance like? Is my question. Like, you're a stock market fraudster? I don't know. He must have the best health care ever if this kid was in a hospital for 18 months, I think is the
No,
length of
2.5
time we're given.
It was
years.
2.5 years,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. So what's that bill like, Damien? How you doing?
I mean, this also was written
Oh, yeah. In
in an earlier time.
When
I
healthcare
have-
was affordable.
Yes.
I'm not going to get into
We
health
won't
insurance,
go there.
but yeah.
Health insurance or the state of mental institutions at the time. And he was like, not to defend Damien, but
Because nobody should ever.
nobody should ever. But maybe she was maybe Sylvia was like getting to the age where like it'd be like home care or
Yeah.
institutionalized. And even if this was like pre-Geraldo expose, the general consensus was that those places were nightmarish.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
Now they're just on the street instead.
You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we support you in this conspiracy theory.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep, that those are totally possible, but I know there's a couple other floating out there. Who else wants to dive in?
As I mentioned before, I definitely, especially just given what I know about VC Andrews through like the mitosis of pop culture, it felt weird that the only disgusting like abuse that didn't occur in this book was incest.
Yeah.
Considering
so-
how heavily it features in some of her other works.
Yeah, it's kind of her niche. So the vibe that I got, particularly like the further it went, was that Vera and Damien definitely did not have a strictly platonic relationship, so to speak. Just like every possible red flag is there in terms of like what you see in victims of trauma. And just like I'm pretty sure he has a a physical relationship with every other woman in the book except for Audrina. So it just strikes me as impossible that there wasn't something else going on with their relationship, particularly with how much she tried to like emulate the older female figures in their life and sort of take
Especially
Audrina's
Lucky.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she went through a whole phase where she like laid on the Shea Lounge like Lucky did and ate bonbons, which like that sounds great, but nothing else in this book does.
Yeah. She did more than lay on the Shea Lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just I mean like her interactions with every man in her life. I just want to like give her a hug and maybe file her nails and have a talk about appropriate relationships with your siblings.
Yeah, there was a lot of like sexual acting out that was very like
Very early on.
red
Yeah.
flag, honey, you are dealing with some trauma.
Yeah, and she definitely like there is, you know, the aspect of her involvement with Audrina's trauma is horrifying and just the worst.
And also a red flag that
And
like
also a red flag
what
because
happened
she's
to you?
trying to negate the purity of her sibling.
Yeah.
So it's so much to unpack, you guys. I just feel like there's probably layers of the 7-layer dip of terribleness that we have not uncovered.
And as a side, like a little diversion, we'll put that in the parking lot. So Vera at some point went and found a bunch of boys in town and was like, "Hey boys, want to rape a 9-year-old?"
Yeah.
Who were these kids that were like, "Yep."
They were her classmates, so they were all 9. Like, what?
I thought they were supposed to be a little bit
Yeah,
older.
I thought they were older.
Yeah, I thought they were boys from school, but like maybe boys from.
12.
Well, Vera was a year older, wasn't
Yeah.
she? Mm-hmm. So were they like boys from Vera's class, or boys who were a little bit
Boys
older?
that old could do that.
But like 12. Yeah.
Well,
we'll say
yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, like 12.
Early teens.
Where is anybody's parents? Except for the White Ferns, because they're no good.
Because they're at home,
They're at home ready to break out the
ready for the birthday party.
ready to break out the iodine and the boiling bath.
That's right. The way her parents respond
forgot
when they
about
find
that.
out that she has been sexually assaulted, they like handle it really badly.
I mean,
Shocker.
because the whole book is them handling it badly, essentially.
Yeah.
We did not. Yeah, it was on her birthday. She was going to her birthday party in a fancy, pretty dress.
And she shows up at the party.
Yes, and mom tells mom, or she looks disheveled, tells her she's bleeding. Mom brings her up to the bathtub, strips her down, and scrubs her till she bleeds all over her entire body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how
Destroying
mother deals.
evidence.
Destroying
all
evidence.
evidence in a boiling
That
bath.
was when I read that, I was like, "Don't! You're destroying the evidence."
And just scrubs her worse, like makes her bleed all over her whole body by scrubbing her with like
While
brushes,
like berating
inside
her
and
about
out,
how she'll never be.
pure ever
Which,
again.
to be fair,
spoiled
that is
forever.
Damien's version of events.
That's
So-
true.
Was it? I thought it was her own
No,
memory.
that's like when they have the whole she screams at the wind chimes because the wind chimes will tell her what happened. And Damien rolls up and is like, "Oh no, I got this. Leave the wind chimes out of it." The only innocent character in this book.
she's gonna jump off the roof. That is
Yes,
Yeah.
because she
Gonna
tried to she tried to jump off the roof
when
after
she was 9 or
when
8
she was
or whatever.
yeah.
And then he tells her
is
how all
fair.
of this went down. So this is all his recollection, which I don't trust him as far as I can throw him because he's garbage. Like, all of them are. They're all garbage.
And you couldn't throw him very far because he's very big and you're tiny.
Yes, he's over
is
200
very
pounds and so tall.
6'5".
I mean, 6'5" and 200 is not that big. It's skinny.
She says well over
Well,
200
well
pounds, which could
over.
be anything. Like,
So, and I do like see him as being someone who probably hits the gym.
yeah. He's got a Bowflex in that mansion somewhere.
I see him as I always when I read it pictured him as was it Julian McMahon from Nip Tuck.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
never
yeah,
seen
yeah.
him talk.
1000%.
Yep.
It's right in his wheelhouse, too.
Yeah.
Be good. Which would have been a much better actor than the non-choice, I guess.
That was the lack of
Bland
words.
blonde man.
for
A
the
bland blonde
Lifetime
man.
original movie of My Sweet Audrina.
Oh my god, it was so bad.
my gosh. You know what? But really, viewers, $1.99 on Amazon Prime. Totally worth it. I'm going to recommend that you grab some White Claws and hang out in a friend's apartment and watch it. Not saying that's what happened, but yeah, you just get like lightly trashed and watch it with a few friends and then discover that your friend is an expert baton twirler. These are the things that happen. But yeah, let's
We should hit like do like a subscriber, like when we hit a certain subscriber limit, we'll like
Release the footage.
release a video of Michelle twirling baton.
All right.
It's amazing. So we got to enjoy the lifetime interpretation. We'll call it the loose interpretation. Because it was a 90-minute movie,
Yeah.
pretty quick. There's no way you can cover this.
It's
book
a
in 90
TV
minutes.
movie, so they
Could have made it longer or several episodes, but
right.
chose
They could have
not
done a
to.
mini series, but chose not to.
This book is 520 pages. 90 minutes ain't gonna do it. No.
It's densely written too. It's not like
They
500 pages of nothing.
Yeah.
Excellent. But so Sarah's got the plot summary pulled up from the lifetime.
IMDb.
Yep.
My Sweet Audrina, 2016 TV movie. Living in her family's secluded mansion, Audrina is kept alone and out of sight and is haunted by nightmares of her older sister, the first Audrina, who was left for dead in the woods after an attack. As she begins to question her past and her disturbing dreams, the grim truth is slowly revealed. Which makes it sound a lot more interesting than it is.
That's it.
No mention of the stairs at all.
Are there stairs in the movie?
There
There
are
are
stairs in the
stairs.
movie.
But very little. Way less death on stairs.
There's two. Okay, so they cut out Billy entirely, and they cut out Sylvia entirely. So, out of the 4 stair deaths, they retain 3 of them. Well, 4 out of the 4 stair falls, they retain 3. There's Elspeth's death, Vera's death, and then they keep Audrina falling down the stairs and slipping into a coma.
It's fair to say there is no way in this movie to tell what time it is because some people are dressed like it's 1890. Others are dressed like it's 1990 and some like it's 1960. Vera looks like she's like mid 70s, but the 90s version. And
Yes,
then
like the 90s remembering the 70s.
Yeah. Elsbeth looks like 1890. She's
School
got
marm
a
outfits,
school marm
which
outfit.
I love.
Dad looks like early 2000s spiked hair and suit.
Yeah, and the piano teacher has one of those like the prayer bead bracelets that were real cool in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
That makes it even worse.
And then
And has kind of a swoopy hairdo.
Audrina's like permanent child outfit. I don't know.
Yeah, they just dress her like a doll.
I mean, to be fair, based on the book and its like loose relationship with time, that almost makes sense. It almost feels like, how do we portray the like complete nonsense? I think of The Good Place and Jeremy Bear Me. Like that is this book. And its relationship with the time-space continuum. So I feel like they just kind of grabbed whatever. And I mean, also it's
they kept
Lifetime.
changing the actors.
Oh.
So
As they age.
they age, but in a way that
Didn't make any
was
sense.
more confusing. Like Audrina went from 14 to 16 and then stayed 16 for the rest of the movie, and Vera went from like 16 to 35.
There's
You're like,
some shit, okay?
I don't understand how time moves in this movie. Although 16-year-old Vera was played by the girl who plays Marina on The Magicians.
Yes.
And she was the best part of the movie. Everyone else was garbage. And Audrina had like a very marked accent change. From like young Audrina to like older Audrina, all of a sudden her entire accent changed.
Yeah. Do you guys remember watching Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? The intro, Kevin Costner does the British accent for the first chunk, and then the second part, they're like, Kevin, don't you can't do it. That was it. Yeah, when they changed.
But like the
actresses.
reverse, where she doesn't have an accent, and then all of a sudden she's
got
like,
one.
And she's supposed to be a child at the beginning, but they picked an actress who like literally looked like she was 14, and then the next actress didn't look that much older at all. Like, why'd you even switch? You could have kept the same one.
You were very upset by that choice, Michelle.
I was.
Just throwing the baton in the air angrily. She doesn't even look different.
And even looking at the set, so the actors did not match up. The costumes were not aligned. I was really frustrated looking at the set and background of things because it's, this beautiful Southern Victorian home and supposed to be all antique looking and shea lounges. And then they'd switch over to the kitchen, and as a
Stainless steel kitchen.
yes, recent new homeowner, I was like, those cabinets are not more than 3 years old.
I'm gonna pause and give the production just a teensy bit of credit, because it was said in the book that whole Victorian house was very antiquated, but only 2 rooms had electricity and was updated, and that was the bathrooms. And the kitchen had state of the art everything, because Lucky had to have her really bougie, shiny kitchen.
But this was McMansion kitchen. And sometimes the outside of the house looked like a McMansion, and sometimes it looked like a Victorian. When she's going to jump off the roof, I'm like, did they switch houses?
One of the reasons why I remember turning the movie off and not being interested is I saw the exterior of the house. I'm like, no.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how many stained glass windows are we talking? Because I feel like every other page in the book was talking about the stained glass windows. I'm like, how do you guys see when you're walking through this house? It's just a rainbow of nightmares.
So the stained glass windows in the movie, I actually just rewatched the movie last night. Asked Nick about it. He hated it. My partner is also a Nick, so not her husband. But the stained glass windows that they showed were stained glass windows of angels.
No, they're boobs.
And the angels. But okay, have you ever seen the pictures where they take Steve Buscemi's eyes and they put them on people? That's what the angels' eyes looked like. They were Steve Buscemi eyes. Yeah. So she's looking at the thing. She's looking at the stained glass windows tell me. I don't understand what's happening. Tell me why am I having these weird dreams? And then the angels Steve Buscemi eyes at her.
See, and that's the thing too, is in the book there's a large amount of time spent talking about how everywhere in this house there's sculptures and paintings and windows, and they're all naked women and naked men, but the men's genitals are covered because that would be uncouth.
Shameful.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ugh. It's just a lot.
Yeah. And I think my favorite choice was the only way that they aged Audrina when she moved from 14 to 16 is suddenly for the rest of the movie, she wore wedge heels. That was it.
Yeah.
Even when she was running, anywhere she went, suddenly Audrina had on wedge heels. So it was
did you skip wedge heels? Yeah, did you skip the wedge heels development of puberty?
Oh, no, I've been this height since 7th grade, so no wedge heels.
Unfair.
Also, I do want to mention that Lamar Rensdale in the TV movie was not Harry.
Not at all.
He was not Harry.
He was less than Harry.
He was less than Harry.
He was how I don't like it.
Is that a Shakespeare show?
As you don't like it, no thank you.
Oh, amazing. So honestly, I think that we could talk about this book for 6 months, kind of like we have. Yeah. But I think it's maybe time to put VC Andrews away. and
R.I.P. VC.
Say thank you for this delightful journey, and then discuss our book that we'll be talking about next week.
New book next week.
Goodbye, VC.
Goodbye, VC. Hello, Christopher Pike.
Yes.
We'll be discussing Die Softly. This was a book from my childhood that definitely should not have been at all. Ooh, goodness.
Oh, no. Another book that said more about myself than about the book.
Oh, no.
We're going to rename this show
Michelle's therapy.
That's so Michelle.
Pick up therapy for Michelle.
Michelle, did you relate to Alexa a little too much? The character Alexa.
We'll get there.
We'll talk about it next time.
But that was actually something that came up during one of our writers' meetings, was just saying, you know what, maybe we should just have 45 seconds with Michelle for these moments of where she related too much to some of our characters, and we learned a lot about our friend in there today. So I want to say thank you all for listening to Who Let Me Read This, and thank you so much to our guests. If you guys just want to go on down the line and say
Michelle White.
introduce yourselves and say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And any other closing thought on My Sweet Audrina before she goes away.
Thank you, VC, for the life realizations. And I look forward to next week, guys.
Sarah Wallisch. I forget what I'm supposed to say. Oh, yes, VC Andrews. Oh, honey. Oh, honey. R.I.P. VC.
Madi Veeder and hashtag My Sweet Audrina, my sweet Jesus, I was a fucked up kid.
Andrea Roedel-Schroeder. I knew I was in for a ride when in the first time Vera berates Audrina, she says, "You're not special, merely strange." And I was like, oops, it's me.
Oh my gosh. Thanks. And my name is Laura Holterman, signing off. Thank you to VC Andrews, who sparked the conversation with my mom, who is a writer of literary quizzes. That's what my mom does for a living. And I actually invited her to sometime be on the podcast and discuss that. And she was like, I really don't like reading anymore. It's been ruined. Ruined. Yep. So I feel like that says a lot about us. So thank you to all of you out there. Thank you so much to sexyhackers.com for giving us this awesome space to work in. Go online and check out all of their other family of podcasts and great shows and content and t-shirts. And these are so comfy, not just because we got one. They're actually... Yeah.
I have no lives left.
I might cut mine off into a crop top, but...
Yep, for for the big-chested ladies out there, they fit.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That's not normal for all of them. So thank you guys all very much, and we'll see you next week for Christopher Pike's Die Softly. Dun, dun, dun. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sexyhackers.com! Stream Team!